Hey, everybody. My name is Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. Your presence is very much appreciated. So, welcome or welcome back. Today, we're talking about the HBO Max drama or dramedy, Miss You, Love You, starring Allison Janney and Andrew Rannells. This one caught my attention immediately because of the premise. And it reads: After her husband dies, a grieving widow finds herself planning the funeral with a complete stranger, her estranged son's assistant. And right away, I thought, okay, that's an interesting setup. Is this movie worth your time? Let's get into it. So, first impressions, I was hooked. The movie opens with Jamie, the assistant played by Andrew Rannells, driving to meet Diane, played by Allison Janney. We immediately get insight into the relationship between Jamie and Diane's son, Tyler, I believe that's his name, and that's through a series of text messages. It was a simple opening, but it worked. It introduced the lead characters, it established the situation, and it made me curious about where the story was going. Now, let's talk about the performances because this movie absolutely lives and dies on them. The chemistry between Allison Janney and Andrew Reynolds was excellent. And when I say chemistry, I don't mean romance because this is not a romantic movie or a rom com. What I mean is that these two actors created a believable connection between two people who are essentially strangers and they're trying to navigate grief together. At first, their interactions feel surface level and even a little awkward, but as the story unfolds, you begin to see the layers underneath. They slowly open up to one another, and then what develops is something really meaningful. I recently saw an interview where Alice and Janney talked about their theater backgrounds, and you can absolutely feel that level of craft in their performances. These characters felt real. One of the moments that really stood out to me was when Diane says something, the character Diane says something along the lines of, when someone you love is hurting, you put it aside. That scene, it carries so much weight because the processing of her own grief while also trying to make sense of her complicated relationship with her son, it just was powerful. Another standout moment came from the humor. There's a scene where Jamie essentially decides to stay because he's worried about saving the succulent. I thought that was cute. Um, it was such an unexpected moment and exactly the kind of humor the movie needed. It lightened the mood after an emotional scene, and it just reminded me that grief stories can still make room for laughter. There were a few moments where the humor landed at the right time, and as the movie continued, I just realized this wasn't really a story about funerals. It's a story about grief, how these characters are processing grief and loss. It's about relationships. It's about the relief that comes when people finally begin telling the truth about what they're carrying. Both Diane and Jamie are layered characters. They're processing different kinds of loss, but they somehow help each other move forward. I feel that's where the movie shines. I also appreciated how the story slowly reveals information about Diane's son. There were moments where I found the constant text messages. I found that to be a little frustrating because we didn't always know what was being said. But once the movie reveals what's actually happening, the payoff is worth it. As I alluded to earlier, there are also funny moments all through the movie. One involving Henry's cat that was both uncomfortable and funny at the same time. All right, this movie it does a really good job balancing the emotional tones. As for a favorite character, I'm giving this one to both Diane and Jamie because I feel like neither character works without the other. Their relationship becomes the heart of the movie, and watching them support one another through grief was one of the strongest parts of the story. Emotionally, this movie took me everywhere. I laughed, I smiled, I teared up, I got emotional. One scene that really got me was when Diane was sorting through the pictures for Henry's funeral. If you've ever had to help plan services for someone you love, that scene will probably hit home. And then there's the voicemail. friends. The voicemail, I don't want to give any spoilers, but that moment absolutely had me tear up. If I had to point out one thing that didn't completely work for me, it probably would have been the church's pushback regarding Henry's music selections. The pastor's insistence on traditional hymns that felt kind of frustrating, because we want to honor our loved ones' wishes, after they're gone. And although it did lead to one of the movie's funnier moments involving Diane and her neighbor, that probably would be the one thing that stood out to me that didn't quite work. But the next scene, there's a funny scene that follows. So I guess it worked out. I really like this movie. There wasn't much I did not like. So where does this movie land on my rating scale? Well, this movie absolutely is worth the watch. The performances are outstanding. The chemistry between Allison Janney and Andrew Rannells is exceptional. The writing is thoughtful, great storytelling. The story kept my attention from beginning to end. And perhaps most importantly, it earns its emotional moments. And by the end of the movie, we finally learn the meaning behind the title, Miss You, Love You. It's sad, it's complicated, it's realistic, and honestly, it's one of those details that stayed with me long after the credits rolled. I highly recommend this movie. Now I want to hear from you. Have you seen Miss You, Love You? If so, let me know in the comments. And where would you place it? Worth the watch, cozy watch, or background watch? Let me know down in the comments. And that's all I have. If you enjoy spending this time with me, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It truly helps support the channel. I'm Danielle, and as always, I appreciate your support. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.